solar panels, electricity. That's an important need, but that is not the only need in the world. So we're going to use the next an hour or so to look at some other issues and some other innovative solutions. Right? So first of all, we're going to invite someone from Korea to share with us how to help people to learn English, which is almost a universal need, and at the same time, help people who can teach English at the same time. So there are people who need to learn English, there are people who can teach English, but they don't often happen to be in the same place. So how does that work? All right, let us welcome, Miss Yuha Jin from Korea. Thank you.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. Hi, I'm Yuha Jin from Korea. I saw that there's like 2 people from Korea. Okay, yeah, that's great. So my company's name is Tella, and it's an online English education company. So I try to make sure that there's a lot of visual stuff so you don't get too bored. All right, just a short video about our service. And it's in Korean, sorry, so I'll interpret.
어디에서도 다른 사람 눈치 볼 거
Yeah, this
없이
is how our
나의
service
영어
works.
문장을 고쳐주고
You chat with an English tutor online, and you receive corrections during your lessons, so you can see what you got wrong, what you got right, recommendations on your English, and you can listen to what the corrections that you got. And yeah, so this is basically an ad we run on social media for our service. Yeah, right. Okay, so Tella provides English learners the most time-efficient learning method, which is chat. Sorry for the stuff that's cut off. So it's a 25-minute lesson with an English native tutor. You chat with the tutor, and they give you instant corrections and also recommend more natural expressions. So any of you that learned English that isn't your native tongue would probably kind of understand what value this provides. So our service is on demand, so you can book a lesson anytime, anywhere, with any tutor you want, any program you want. And you can, so we have more than 500 units of curriculum that you can choose from. And you can choose your own tutor based on their ratings, based on their interests, their strengths, their weaknesses. And after the lesson, as you saw in the ad, you can see all the corrections that you got, listen to them and repeat after it. You can get a simple data analysis of your English during your lesson. So for example, like how much vocabulary, how many words you used, how many sentences you made, etc. And we give a report based on analyzing your chat data. So we show your progress, learning progress, and your progress in your proficiency. And you might wonder, like, okay, how does chat help improve English communication? Well, there's an actual study that's done showing that chat lessons actually improve your English speech more than speech lessons, which is pretty amazing. So if you're interested, you can look it up. But and we see that from our users. And also why chat is fit for the market or the learner's need is because a lot of English learners have anxiety issues. So as a Korean, we learned English like pretty much our whole life. But then when we try to speak, like you kind of run away. You kind of run away from the person that's speaking in English. So you have that anxiety. Now, if you do texting or chat, that anxiety kind of goes away because you don't have to respond instantly or speak directly. So that's how we kind of lure the customers in. That's how we say, okay, start with chat. Also, you get instant feedback, as you saw. And as you saw, we provide accurate assessment, not just saying subjectively what your progress is, but actually analyzing your English data. So there's so many, sorry, this is in Korean, but there's so many customer reviews, especially talking about like they overcame their anxiety for English. And with our service, we've been able to sell not only to B2C customers, like individual customers, but also to big businesses. You probably know Samsung. Does anybody know PUBG, like Battleground? So yeah, yeah, you guys are young. So yeah, we provide our services to the employees of Battlegrounds development company PUBG, and also other companies as well. Yeah, so we've been in the media, and we've done most of our marketing through social media. So specifically targeted ads. Mostly on Facebook and Instagram, also Naver, which is kind of like a Korean Google, and we are working on YouTube as well. So we have, through social media pages and ads, that's how we were able to bring in customers. Through our service and the progress in our business, we were able to raise private capital funding and also win awards as well. I have 6 people working with me right now, full-time, in Korea. So this is our business, and I'm actually very, looking back, or when I was invited to this event, I met with PolyU 2 years ago in Korea. That's how I got to be invited, and the thought that I thought was, thank God the business survived for the past 2 years so that I was able to come here. So our business has been growing. I've been doing it for 5 years now, and we're soon to break even. So you might wonder, like, what does this English education have to do with social innovation or social ventures? So this all started when I was a university student. I actually attended this kind of conference when I was a college student. And when I was in college, I visited, at that time, Burundi, so an East African country, and it was for like Christian missions. It was very short, and I didn't really know anything about Africa, other than what you know in the media, like poverty and war and all of that. But I met people there and realized like they're very fluent in English and in French and in Swahili and in like multiple languages and very well spoken. There were way more university educated people than I expected, and so that's kind of the impression I got was, wow, there's a lot of well-educated, well-spoken people here, and but then a lot of them were jobless. And when I looked into the statistics, the university graduates in East African countries sometimes even goes up to more than 80%, the unemployment rate. So, and this is, you can see, this is an actual protest in Uganda. I have a degree, no job. So you can see that this is an actual problem. In Uganda, where we're doing business now, there's 40,000 people graduate from university every year, but only 17% get employed to a job. So what we thought was to hire the people, university graduates in Uganda, and have them provide services to Koreans, teaching English online. We'll provide training, we'll bring in the customers, create all the content, etc., and they can teach. So this was a rough idea, and it started out with like Skype lessons or telephone lessons. And we found out that there's an actual industry called business process outsourcing, such as like call centers in India or the Philippines. And so this was, we thought, okay, we're gonna do this kind of similar business. And we found out that the Ugandan government was actually trying to bring up this industry. And this is the Ugandan president, Museveni. he actually took the initiative and invested in call centers or internet infrastructure and all that. So we thought, okay, we'll leverage this this opportunity that the government already like put in investments. But we saw that their goal to employ through this industry didn't match. They weren't able to create as many jobs as they wanted. We thought to ourselves, okay, we can do it for 5 reasons. One is, first, there's a Korean online English education market that's already very big. Just to give you some statistics on how the education market is in Korea. So Koreans spend 1% of our GDP on English education only. So you can understand how much we spend money on. So one person spends more than $1,000 per year just on English education, and it's not just children. It goes up to like people in their 50s, 60s. So there's already a very big market, and a big portion of it is online, and it's becoming more, it's going from offline to online even more. So there was a market that we can work in. Second reason we thought we can make this happen is because we can provide high quality training. And that's not because me and my founders were very like professionals, but more so because the Korean online English education market or the Korean service industry in general, it requires very high standard of services. So anybody that visited Korea before would probably know, like everything's super fast paced. You have to get done everything perfectly, or else like you get complaints, even for like the slightest, like the cheapest services. So if we can match our Ugandan tutors to meet those high, we'll have to make them match the quality that the industry wants. And if we can match or service the Koreans and satisfy them, then we can go global as well. The third reason we thought we can do this is it was an optimal service for Ugandans' capacity. So Ugandans are very fluent in English, but we found out that their accent is a little bit difficult to understand for Koreans. Koreans are mostly used to American English. So we decided we're going to do chat English, as you just saw. So you don't need to use your voice or your accent. You just need to have perfect English and good typing. The fourth reason is Uganda's internet environment isn't or wasn't as like stable enough to do video streaming or telephone English as maybe other countries. So, but chat data requires less capacity in internet, and we can provide a stable service. The last reason was we thought the world's BPO industry, there's a niche segment for text-based services. So we'll target this, and maybe in the future we can branch out to other businesses based on text as well. So we brought up a business plan, and we got some prize money at Social Venture Competition Asia, which is an Asian branch of Global Social Venture Competition hosted by UC Berkeley. So third place was really good. We got 2 million Korean won, which is less than $2,000 or US dollars. After tax, we got like $1,000. So we tried out the pilot. We tried out what we thought in our head and see how it can work. And after trial and error, 5 years later, this is our Ugandan office. So what started out as like a very naive business idea, now we employ more than 70 tutors just in Uganda, and about 20 to 30 in the Philippines. And we're growing very fast-paced recently. So I'll show you a video of our Ugandan tutors. Can we click on the video?
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Hi,
My name is Sydney. I'm Jones.
Joseph,
Sharon. I'm a Tella tutor from Uganda. I'm an online English tutor.
professional tutor of English. We teach English language to Korean students. That's the different aspects of the language, vocabulary, grammar, and also expression, how to express yourself in different forms, different formats.
When we're having classes, I know you don't see me, but I'd like to tell you that whenever we're having class, actually smiling.
Exciting.
Tella is fun.
Worthwhile.
I love.
We always have a good time. We can always chat about anything and everything, and I'm always welcome to your ideas and questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so you can see that there's, it's a very happy team.
Hello?
Oh, so after 5 years, we've been able to create those many jobs. We hold events for people that are looking for these jobs. This is our office. Yeah, and you can see, like, when we show these pictures to just people, like, people are very surprised, I guess. Like, they don't see, okay, so we see a lot of Africans that are, like, maybe babies or, like, depressed, at least on their faces, like, but they don't see, like, young people just, like, very happy and professional. So, yeah, these are our tutors. And so we've not only able to create jobs for each individual, but actually we have 2 tutors that actually got married. They met at Tella. And and also we have like graduates coming straight from university and getting a job right after. So the impact we have been aiming to make is, first of all, directly creating jobs for these university graduates. And this changes each person's lives and their families and their families' lives and also people around them because of the income they make. But as many jobs as we aim to create, if let's say we create 1,000 jobs in the next 2 years, 3 years, that's quite a lot, but I showed you the statistics of 40,000 people graduating every year. So we're not gonna be able to employ every single person graduating. So what can we do from there? I think with our business, because they're being exposed, the impact of each tutor's work is greater than just their own livelihoods. First of all, they're talking to Koreans every day. We counted the Koreans that they talk to, and it's more than 30,000 Koreans have done a lesson with a Ugandan tutor. So people didn't have anything in their head about Uganda or Africa in general, other than war or famine, or they even ask like, oh, do you have giraffes running in the street, or do you live in a hut, or stuff like that. But then once they speak with the Ugandans, whether they purchase our service or not, they know that there are very well-educated people, that Uganda is like this and that, and it's, so they kind of break barriers of what people have in their heads. Not only that, through our success story, what we want to bring is to show that Uganda and East Africa is a place where other companies can come and create businesses and work with Ugandans or Africans. So it goes beyond what direct impact we can make directly. In the long run, what we want to do is build future economic and societal leaders through Tella. So the reason we're focusing on university graduates is because I think ultimately for the country or a nation to grow or develop, they have to have competent leaders in the industries and also in the society as in general. So, but the university graduates were jobless. Now, the society has invested in those people to get higher education, but then eventually most of them, what they end up doing is they don't have jobs that match up their education. So that's ultimately a waste to the country or the society. By employing university graduates, we'll not only give them opportunities to earn more, but also expose them to the global business standard or global business environment. And in the long run, they will build their capacity to become societal leaders or entrepreneurs themselves and bring development to their country. So this is what we aim for. With our tutors, what we want to do is become a very big global business. So right now we serve just Koreans, but this year we're going to go global. And as you saw in the first half of the presentation, we don't market ourselves as a social venture or social enterprise because people don't purchase educational services to create a job for their tutor. They do it for themselves. So what we're trying to do is build a very effective education program or service that no other company can do. And through that, through our business growing, ultimately creating jobs and fulfilling our social mission. So yeah. And this is my ultimate dream for our Ugandan office. So yeah, we want to make it this big. So this is the end of my presentation, and yeah, I would love to talk to every one of you afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 speakers this afternoon, so we're going to hold off the questions until all the 3 speakers have spoken. So as you can see, there are lots of needs in this world. Sometimes you can actually turn a need into an opportunity, right? If you are creative enough. Very often we go to developing countries to teach English as a service, right? That's the normal mode of community service. But you can actually turn it in the other way around and create job opportunities for people who have the capacity, right? So think about it, right? And there are a lot of creative people here, and you are so very young. There are lots of things that you can think about. Now we want to take a different note. Most of you are too young to have children. But eventually, I think most of you would like to be a mother or a father, right? Having children is very exciting, is very, very fulfilling. But it can also be awfully dangerous and risky if you don't get the proper support. Even in modern countries, cities, where all the facilities are there, the mothers often worry a lot during the process. What is going to happen to my baby? Are we going to have problems? How do I deal with this? How do I deal with that? But imagine if you are in a country without these kind of facilities, without hospitals, well-equipped hospitals, you live far away from doctors and nurses and so on. It can be a very scary journey. So now we're going to have someone who can tell us how these things can be tackled. And also, throughout this today, we have heard a lot about Africa. Lots of us actually sort of work in Africa, including Dr. Tan, Mr. Roy, and even ourselves, we have worked in Africa. But none of us are real Africans. Now let us invite a real African to come and speak with us. Please welcome Ms. Adepeju Jaiyeoba. I hope I can get the name right.
Yeah, please.
Bagba, then you go to hospital.
It shouldn't be like this. The location of a woman at childbirth, as well as her economic status, must never be an excuse for her to die.
This one is for the baby.
We must never use that as a defender. Maybe if she had been in Lagos, she would not have died.
This one, it made the delivery easy. This one, it made the baby very strong and very neat when they deliver the baby. We use this one to control blood, to prevent bleeding.
We go into communities and we don't go there to say, you know what, you need to stop all these things you are doing and you need to start using our kits. And we don't go there. They would not listen to you if you do that. We just tell them that in addition to whatever you believe in, please use the content of the kit.
We got a phone call from one of the traditional birthing attendants that we'd met who hadn't been trained how to use the mother's health kit, but they had a woman in their facility in labour. So we dropped everything we were doing and rushed over there so that we could film the birth. The next thing we witnessed was the most shocking scene. 3 of the birthing attendants had to just lift her up. They'd been trying to hold her up, get her to wake up, and were failing and realized that they had to take her to hospital. Because she couldn't stand up, 3 of the birthing attendants lifted her off the bed, completely naked, and they just carried her across the courtyard. They carried her out, bundled her into a car, and then just drove off.
It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't feel afraid that, is this going to be your last day on earth? Because you are going into labor. It shouldn't be.
Safe delivery kits are a very good idea because at the same time you could also teach the traditional birth attendants, and then you could help make each delivery less likely to get infected.
The future for us is to reach more communities, help more women stay alive, help more babies live their potential. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So in Nigeria, I run Mothers Delivery Kits, which is a social enterprise that connects women in rural communities to the life-saving supplies they need at childbirth. 1 in 13 women are at a risk of dying at childbirth in Nigeria. Every year, Nigeria loses about 57,000 women. Everyone knows someone who has died at childbirth in Nigeria. You know, a sister, a mother, there's someone you know somewhere who has died at childbirth. Childbirth is a risky venture. People think that medicine cannot offer you enough support anymore. You need to go spiritual. And so they seek out all these birth attendants who know nothing about childbirth, no information, no training, nothing. And because they think that they have some kind of spiritual connection, they can help save them from dying at childbirth. In 2011, I lost a close friend at childbirth. And for me, it was her death that put a face behind every statistics I had seen. When you hear 1 in 13 women at a risk of dying at childbirth, they're just numbers to you, until you know someone who was that 1 in 13 that particular year. And so we started Mothers Delivery Kits, which basically is a kit containing sterile supplies that women use at childbirth. 60% of births in Nigeria are taken by traditional birth attendants in rural communities where more than 50 million women live and work. When I started the kit in 2014, they told me that no one will buy a kit that contains sterile supplies. In 2014, we sold 30 kits. That was the only set of kits we sold in 2013. Today, we have sold over 500,000 kits. What's my point? People will tell you your idea is impossible. They will tell you it can never work. They will try to dissuade you. They will try to tell you not to do it. But go ahead, give it a try, because impossible is nothing. And so this is one of our clients. In one of the communities we work, she's a birth attendant. She was also pregnant at this time. I was pregnant too. So we supply our facilities with kits in different communities, and this is our own community, and we're just having a conversation. What does this story tell you? It also tells you that to the community that you serve, you must have deep connections with them. The community you serve is the people who ultimately consume your goods. That point that I can't remember the speaker now mentioned about humility is very important. You need to connect deep to your community because they are the ones you serve. In working across different communities, we also realize that selling kits is not enough. You need to train birth attendants, because it is only when birth attendants know more that they will be able to do more for the women under their care. Things as simple as contraceptive, things as simple as stopping postpartum hemorrhage, things as simple as using gloves are a luxury in these communities. So in addition to selling kits, we also train birth attendants. We have an online platform where birth attendants also take training in different communities. In Nigeria, we have a doctor-to-patient ratio of 1 to 5,000 patients. 1 doctor to 5,000 patients. We do not have enough medical practitioners. And so the government enacted something called the task shifting policy, which allows anyone that can read and write with basic knowledge of healthcare to be able to man public facilities, primary healthcare centers in rural communities where there are no doctors or midwives, or where doctors and midwives have refused to stay. Our e-learning platform offers people who want to become community health extension workers or village health workers an opportunity to get the background training that they need. The curriculums on the e-learning platform is also certified by different state governments. So upon the conclusion of their training, they are able to be converted into village health workers. So this is also how it works. That's our platform. So the thing about business is this: you need to continue to innovate. You need to continue to do better for the people that you serve. Our goal is to reduce maternal and child mortality in Nigeria. So we have the delivery kit that works to tackle maternal mortality. And then we started looking deeper into child mortality, which is basically under 5 mortality. Nigeria also has the highest rate of child mortality in Africa. And so this year, we launched our own brand of instant baby cereal called Colorful Giggles. We want every child to be able to smile. We want every child to be able to stay alive, to live their potential, just as we want their mothers to stay alive, to watch them grow. What we have done with the cereal is to make sure that it is preventive. Malnutrition is the highest cause of death, child deaths in Nigeria. And so by having a preventive cereal instead of a curative meal plan for babies, we are trying to make sure that they stay alive. So in 2015, I met President Barack Obama in the US. And this was when he gave 5 of us the award of the White House Emerging Entrepreneur. At the time we were doing our work in Nigeria, I did not imagine that in the little corner of our world, in the little corner right there in Nigeria, our light was going to shine to DC. What does that tell you? With whatever you have in your hands, whatever it is that you find, do something. Start anyway. Don't wait to raise $1 million. We never did. We started with 30 kits, and it was from savings from my salary. It was basically about $20. And today we've moved on. We have not had any venture capitalist invest in our firm. We have not had any kind of capital investment from a VC like one of the speakers. But with what we had, we were able to grow it. And we've grown it to such a stage that right now, I do not even want any outside investment. It's self-sustaining. In your little corner of the world, shine. And so this is also me last year with Prince Charles, and it's also around our work. Don't do anything in expectation of a reward, because eventually your light will shine and everyone will see you. This is one of my best quotes. And basically, I live by it. Every single one of us will make profound and significant contributions to our world and communities. Every single one of us here. We have something inside of us, burning and waiting for the whole world to see. And every single one of us will shine our light so bright that everyone will need shades to see it. We would make profound contributions and significant contributions to the world, not just our community, not just our country, but the whole world. Get ready to shine. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. This is truly a life and death issue. Right? It's serious, but it is also exciting in the sense that if you work hard and you are creative enough, there are things that can be opening for you, right? So, having considered the young, let us look at the other end of life. If we are fortunate enough, we'll all grow old, right? And then what happens? I don't mind telling you, I should have retired 3 years ago. Except that service learning is so exciting that I decided to stay a little bit longer. Actually, like many other people, I kind of wonder about what happens after retirement. When I grow old enough, and then I won't be able to work, and then what? Okay, and I think you all realize that the world, many countries, many cities in this world are growing old. Hong Kong is growing old. China is growing old. Very often, one or two people, we have to support 2 sets of parents and maybe 4 sets of grandparents and so on and so forth. How does that work? Right? Who takes care of the old? Right? Let us ask one of us from Hong Kong, Mr. Lawrence Lui, to come and share with us the work that he has been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Today, I'm Lawrence from Hong Kong. I'm running a social venture called Longevity Design House and Longevity Technology, who actually are providing aging in paid services for those elderly in Hong Kong. So, you know, I'm not trained as an architect, interior designer, or even like computer scientist. But how come I'm running a social venture actually including requiring a lot of expertise in this area? I actually study advertising and public relations in Hong Kong. That's the picture I draw. I just kicked out the work. I'm really passionate about like advertising, PR, and I kickstart my career in one of the largest communication agency called Ogilvy and Mather. I really enjoy my job, but what inspired me and what happened changed my life as well as my career choice is my own family pain. This my late father. 6 years ago, just after the Lunar Chinese New Year, he suddenly feels sick. And after a month, I forced him to hospital. And after another month, he diagnosed us that he got a late-stage lung cancer. Of course, he was a smoker, so this we call it karma. He noticed that that will be an issue anyway. But you know, as a family members, close family members, when we notice that his life is calmed down by months, it really hurts. So I'm the only child in the family, just like many Chinese family. But during that, moment is really hard for me because I need to send him to the hospital and take care of him, make many decisions. And my dad actually, I saw him cry when the doctor said that, hey, Mr. Lui, perhaps you just got like 3 to 4 months life calmed down. But my dad's the only wish, he begged me just like, hey son, I just want to back home. You know, because in hospital during that time, his condition is not that good. Oxygen mask, wheelchair, and the nurse detained him in the bed in the ward. So that's my challenge. Hey, how can I bring my dad back home? Is my major mission that time. But you know, in Hong Kong, because most of the attendees are not from Hong Kong, but in Hong Kong setting, over 90% of patients actually using the public hospital services by the housing authority. If you want to send a patient back home, you need to make an appointment with the occupational therapist and make an assessment like that. They will give you a report, and then you need to find out the solution by yourself. Just like you need to bought the equipment or need to find the workers. But the thing is, as a caregiver, we just want a quick solution. You can tell me how can I spend the money and just like fix all the stuff, and then I can move back my father to hospital, to back home in a short period of time. But in reality, in Hong Kong, just like they will just give you a report, and then you need to do the reminding procedure. So after my dad died, I got the depression for a year. After I recover, I try to figure out whether I can do something so that I can come out from my difficult emotions, and as well, I try to figure out actually how many people like me actually encounter similar situation. So by that time, I did a research just like how the Hong Kong aging problem, how big is the problem. You will see that it's around like 16%. By the definition of the World Health Organization, actually a developing countries, if their aging populations exceeds 15%, they call a aging population. But why that's a big problem for Hong Kong? You can look down for the figures about dementia. It's one of the big diseases. Usually, if you got dementias, your health condition may deteriorate in 10 to 15 years, and eventually the patient may die. And you will see the figures. So that's why it creates a huge demand for the elderly service. But you know, the land supply in Hong Kong is quite limited. So we actually lack of supply for the elderly home. You can see the left images is the conditions of the elderly home. It's quite expensive though. You may need to spend around 1,500 US dollars for a month. But we saw from some news keeping, those like health assistants, perhaps they're working in a really high pressure. So there's some news that they may hurt, or it's not that or the elderly may not get the dignity service in the elderly home. Meanwhile, if they, the single elderly household, they live at their own home, the condition is not that good, and no one take care of them because the children may not live with them. And we take a survey, the left corner. The government, during the census survey, they asked, will you want to go elderly home or stay at home? You will see that actually most of them saying a no. But of course, as I mentioned, there are a lot of problems. If they stay at their home, the fall rate is quite high, and once they fall down, they got fracture, and their health condition may keep deteriorating. So there's some usual, the condition of the house of elderly of our client. You may say that the top one actually is a businessman. He got Parkinson's disease for 10 years because the setting of their home, he actually can't living independently by themselves, and his wife actually just like telling me that, hey, Mr. Loy, I really want to modify my house, not only the medical equipment or making it a low barrier, accessible places, but also I don't want my house look like a hospital or a elderly center, because it remind her that I need to be a caregiver, or I need to take care of my useless husband 24 hours. So sometimes like the service client is not only your direct client, but also other like stakeholders. So our services, we run the business for 5 years. One of the services is about like we designing the house and renovate them. And also we got a team including those like IoT devices and deploy active monitoring services in those single elderly households. So I serve, right now we're serving like 3,000 elderly households in Hong Kong and Macau a year, but of course due to the support from the government, we expect that we may serving like 10,000 household with next 18 months. But you will see that both the not depending the income, the lower income group or high income group, actually both of them leading the service, and we have different business model so that we can take a balance. And frankly speaking, 35% of our profit we actually will donate to our own charity foundations, and then we support those like underprivileged income group. And how we differentiate with other interior design firm, we adopting the well-being index by the WHO for evaluating our impact. So for body, it's quite easy to access. After you renovate or redesign the house, whether the patients can feel more convenient or accessible for the equipment, and for mind, whether they feel secure that they can live independently. And last but not least, about people and space, because in Hong Kong the house is quite small, and they got such kind of a lot of materials in the house. It's quite usual. It's also a behavior for those like dementia patients. They want to collect materials at home. So after the renovation, actually, we will evaluate whether more family members, their grandkids or friends may visit them, so that they have a more like social life and more well-being. By designing our business model, due to our pilot study and research, we actually identify 4 critical factors for setting up our business. First, we're trying to engage a multi-discipline team. For example, myself, I'm a good marketer, but I really need like occupation therapists, designers, or product designers to support the team. And secondly, it's about the process, because running business for elderly actually is quite a harsh conditions. People may easily think that, hey, you earn profit from elderly and it looks like you are a evil. So that's why we are not a cheaper service provider in the market, but we try to make everything transparent and try to, get the trust from the elderly members. And third of all, because like in 5 years ago, when we're doing the business, actually no one doing that in China and in Hong Kong. And the supply is limited. Those like construction materials or equipment. So we do have an initiative to engage the Hong Kong manufacturers to foster some cost-center collaboration so that we can enhance our supply. And the last but not least is about education. Kids, children, they may easily spend money in investing on the young kids, like aged to learn English. They may like spend 3,000, 4,000 Hong Kong dollars a month for English class. But if you can ask yourself a question: how many money you would like to spend for your parents? So when we approach those potential customers, they will say, "Hey, my dad or grandparents, they still look healthy, so they may not willing to invest for prevention." So that's why we think that to break the ceiling, we should take care of the education part. Okay, so that's some of the work we did. Multi-discipline team will work with our client, and we will provide different equipment from Japanese, Hong Kong, and UK, different kind of equipments. And that's one of the examples, like how we transform the Parkinson or dementia bedroom with those equipment. Wasted kitchen cabinet and the toilet setting. And we also like deploying some like latest technology, just like 3D printing. We can easily print a RAM in 24 hours, so that with a low cost, so that we can help those wheelchair person to modify their home. It's also made by 3D printers. It's the electric RAM house, because the leveling, the house leveling is different for the house. The lighting system. Also, why we set up our own technology team for those like smart device, just like after you moderate the hardware, we can see some news that the elderly find death at home because they may fall down, lost consciousness, and they die. So we try to sort some low-tech solutions, and also like connect with the young old volunteers in the community. So such kind of technology actually is invented like 10 to 20 years ago. But what we did is we tried to redesign the system, just like that's the typical single elderly household who live in the public housing. We install like 10 sensors. And then we have our own app. If there's some abnormal cases, it will be alert the social worker as well as the neighbors. So for our pilot cases, we pair up like one really seniors with 3 neighborhood, and if they got any abnormal situation, they may go to their home and knock the door. This young this young man. He actually 91 years old. Just like two months ago, we find in the early morning we see a signal that he actually didn't come out from his home for 24 hours, and also had another alarm that he stayed in the toilet over 3 hours. So the neighbor actually go to her home and see that the television is on but low lighting, and because the neighbor actually is know this gentleman for over 10 years, so the senior actually passed the key to the volunteer. So they open the door and send the seniors to hospital and save his life. So he just like get out and got recovered from the hospital 2 weeks ago. So that's I think like technology is critical, but also like how the community or the social capital connected is critical for you to redesign a social business idea. Last but not least, we also, as I mentioned, we try to engage the community to promoting aging in place concept and why it's critical. So we host the family workshop though. It's one of the code simulations where once you wear the code, you may feel like a 80 years old man, and then they may feel that how their grandparents encounter challenge at their home, and we engage them to provide support. And by the survey, you will feel that they may more willing to support their family members, and I mean the seniors. But for those seniors, I asked them actually why you want to back home for aging, or even I asked my dad actually why you want to back home for spend your life the last few months for your life. He mentioned just like because my family members are home. So I believe that although we may provide services like more safe spaces, but you really need to care your senior members so that they may feel warm and have a better aging experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Doi. Let us now invite all three speakers to please come up here, and we have maybe about 20 minutes and give an opportunity to those of you who may have some questions or may have some observations. Yes, please, over there.
Hi, hello, I'm Liana. My question is directed to Mr. Lawrence Lee. Hi, so I'm an occupational therapy student in Singapore, and I'm really moved and touched by your initiative and recognizing aging in place, because it's a really important, really important thing lah. But then through my clinical experience and all, the most difficult part is not really getting to the elderly who are well supported in their community, who have children take after them, actually often elderly. Yeah, so I was wondering whether your initiative try to reach out to these lonely elderly who are often at home who often live by themselves and are often very adaptive in their ways and are very hard to convince that they actually need help and they're not living safely. Yeah, so that was one of our biggest, one of occupational therapists in the community, their biggest issue. So I was wondering whether your company did ever try to reach out to them and what problems you faced and how you managed to convince them. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. You asked a really good question. Of course, when I am thinking, our services actually, we run this idea 5 years ago, but in the very beginning, I just want to do anything about aging at home. But you can take out a lot of problems. But in the very beginning, because due to research, the hardware issue is most critical. So that's why during that time, I kickstart my business by deploying the interior design service and take care of the spatial planning and renovation issue first. But of course, after 2 years, we found out that even you renovate lighthouses, but if the safety issue, you didn't really address that, the elderly also encounter difficult situations. So we deploy the technology service. But your question, the next stage is they are safe, but they may spend a lot of time in their house. But of course, we actually encourage them not stay at their home, but they actually need to reach out the community. So that's why this kind of problem, it can be solved by my own social enterprise, but we really need to partners with the district partners, different NGOs in the community. So for our work, because we using the devices, we can get a lot of data, how the elderly spend their time or their behavior at the home, and we will share with our local NGO partners. And then if we notice that he didn't get out home that usual, the volunteers will make a call to them, a warm call, and notice their situation where they feel sick or they're just not happy, and we encourage them to go out to the community. But usually, the elderly in Hong Kong, they want to go to the park for chit-chat. We met a lady, he spent the time to the park for chit-chat for 9 hours a day. Just more busy than the daytime work. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your speeches. So my question is directed to Yuha. I think it was really creative how you use an application to connect to solve 2 problems, which is to teach Koreans English and to use their even to create job for Uganda people. So I think the question that I have was that which problem did you try to solve in the beginning? Did you wanted to teach Korean more English first, or you want to help the Uganda people have more job opportunities? And how did you came up with the idea or just tips on how to link 2 problems together to create a creative solution? Thank you.
Right. I'll try to make it quick. So for us, it was the latter. So we wanted to create jobs for Ugandans. That was the initial mission. But starting from the provider side, it's kind of hard in a business because usually you have to find the customer needs first in order to make a business work. So we just had the broad sense of, okay, there's an online English education market. Okay, we're gonna link it. So coming up with our service that you just saw, it took a lot of trial and error because we initially thought we're gonna do voice lessons, which is more common. But then there were barriers such as pronunciation, accents, and then it's already a red ocean. So we had to be creative on how can we deliver value to our customer or the market in order for us to fulfill the mission. So one of my friends that was in the team in the beginning, he had an experience where he went to study English in the US, and then he said, okay, I actually learned more English messaging my American friends on Facebook rather than when he's meeting them, because he didn't remember what they said, or he can't ask what did you say all the time. So one of our team members brought that experience and said why don't we try chat? And so we tried it, but then it didn't work immediately. We went through a lot of a lot of experimentation and trying to convince the market that this actually helps you. So the initial 2 years of our business was probably convincing people that this works, and also building a good service. So yeah, did that answer your question?
I think there was a question over there. Hello, I'm Jacob from Harbin Institute of Technology. My question is to Ms. Yuha Jin. I'm quite curious about your app, Chat. I have several questions. The first one is, how do you, at first, how do you make your app profitable? And as you know that in the beginning, people want to use your app. And if you are in charge some fees, they won't. And the second one is, that's like some Chinese students and Japanese students and Korean students. They are very good at listening, reading, and writing, but they are not really good at speaking. And when taking IELTS tests, these students from China, Korea, and Japan, they often not doing so well in spoken English. So, is your company have some plans on the spoken English? And for the third question, there is a lot of software. As far as I know, it's very popular on YouTube. There is an advertisement like Grammarly, and they use artificial intelligence and machine learning to process this kind of to make your language, to make your writing more natural, make you good at it. And it's cheap. It's using machine, not by using people. I wonder, how do you make your app more competitive over this kind of things? Thank you.
So I'll try to speed so I don't forget. So the first question was about like how do we charge our services? So there's already established market, and what the customer journey is, usually we advertise and then they come to our landing page and then sign up for a trial lesson. So it's not just our company, every company kind of does that, like gives a free or maybe several free lessons. They give like an analysis on what your proficiency is, and then they decide if they're gonna buy or not. So that's the process. So that's how they purchase, and we only provide like up to 2 to 3 free lessons, and then after that you have to purchase the service in order to use it. So we did that from the beginning, and it worked out. The second question was about, what was it about? What was it?
Spoken English.
Oh, spoken English, right. Spoken English. So I said in the presentation that there's a link between chat and oral proficiency or speech. So just by doing chat lessons, your speech proficiency goes up even higher than speaking lessons, which is, you might think like, how is that possible? But actually, because chat is visual, you remember better. And also you get corrections rather than just like saying the same thing all the time. So your English gets better. And because you have time to think about your English rather than just like blurt it out, you form more complicated, in-depth sentences. So that's the reasoning behind it. So, but we try to convince that and communicate to our customers, and people that actually use our service experience it. So that's how we persuade them. The third one was about technology. So this is where like we learned that technology doesn't necessarily mean that advanced technology doesn't necessarily mean there's a market need. For Grammarly, for instance, that's actually a different market segment because people want to just that's like a functional software where you just want corrections or proofreading on your English, where you don't necessarily want to learn. You just need the proofreading. Whereas where the market we're targeting is people are willing to pay to learn and speak better English or write better English. So we don't see them as a competitor, but we are aware that there can be technology that maybe in the future can replace what we do. But we are confident that people will have a greater need for human beings to interact, because one of the most common questions the trial users ask our tutors is that, are you a bot or are you human? So some people might think bots are more accurate, but they want to learn from a human being, and that's how they're motivated to learn. Where Duolingo, for example, they don't have any people behind the service, so their completion rate is like below 5%. Whereas like services that have human tutors behind it, the retention rate is much higher. So people will want human beings, and eventually they learn English because they want to talk with human beings. So they want a human tutor. So we're going to utilize AI as you saw, like we're utilizing the technology, but ultimately we think value is created by humans plus technology, so yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Before we move on, I would like to make one observation here. We people in the universities very often have attempted to look for applications of our technology, our knowledge. We discover some new algorithms in AI. We discover new ways to do internet. We discover new apps, and so we want to find an applications to make use of the fantastic technology that we have. We engineers have a very strong temptation to do that. But if you have been noticing what people have been talking about, the technology that we are talking about is usually not very fancy high-level technology. Solar panel is nothing new. It has been around for decades and decades. Sanitation is nothing new. A lot of people know that. The issue is how do you get people to use it? How do you get it accessible to people? So the issue is most often about people rather than technology. I just want to make this observation. Now we still have some hands raised. Who has not been asking questions before? Okay, that lady over there, let's give her a chance.
Hello, my name is Joanne and I'm from South Africa. My question is directed to Ms. Jaiyeoba. Sorry, Ms. Is it Jaiyeoba? So basically, I really want to say thank you for creating the Mother's Delivery Kit. Honestly, also growing up in South Africa, I know that in Africa, the reason why there's so many deaths is because of the lack of access. Is not we actually can control and reduce the number. So I really admire your works. So my question is, how do you change the people, especially tradition and culture, like you said, it's everywhere around the world. It's hard to change. So how do you convince the people, or basically the mothers, their traditional method to use technology or the sanitary kits? And my second question is, do you think maybe if we started with the education of the youth, starting from a younger age, that sanitation is important, and how we can try to reduce together the community of deaths that we can actually have control of? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So what's your first question?
Okay, so my first question is, how do we convince the people who use traditional method?
So the aim of Mother's Delivery Kit is actually to create behavioral changes with birth attendants. That's our sole aim. We are also aware of tradition and culture. We try to go into communities identifying two sets of people: the people who hold the power and people who can influence others. The people who hold the power are usually different sets of people. Like in Nigeria, if you go to the northern part of Nigeria, it's the traditional rulers that holds the power. If you go to the western part of Nigeria, it's the mother-in-laws. They decide what a pregnant woman should do when she's pregnant. So identifying this key set of people would help us know how to leverage our influence on those people so that they, in turn, put in their influence for the pregnant woman to direct them to the proper place to get health care. And when we relate with the birth attendant, so understand something with our model. The people who pay for the kits are not the people who determine whether to use the kit or not. They pay for the kit. The pregnant women pay for the kit. But the people who decide whether the kit should be used or not are the traditional birth attendants. So in our scheme of things, they are the people we focus on, not the pregnant women. We focus on the traditional birth attendants because if we focus on the pregnant women, in terms of the education that you have spoken about, by the time that woman gets pregnant and she gets to the traditional birth attendant, and the birth attendant tells her you saw the man who was saying this leave can be used to stop postpartum hemorrhage. I mean, that's nonsense. That leave is not going to stop any postpartum hemorrhage. Our own work there is to find out, is the leaf poisonous or not? If it's not poisonous, go ahead and eat all the leaves you want to eat. I mean, but in addition to eating the leaves, just use our kits. Do whatever it is you believe in. We just check, is it harmful? Is it not harmful? You saw all those things they were putting on the floor, they were cooking over the fire. I mean, those are just blended leaves that they add spices to, and the women get to pick which type of fish they want in the soup. Our own concern there is hygiene. It's safe to eat, but keep it clean. But they believe that when they eat it, they would give birth to life, they will have life births and nobody would die and things like that. It's fine. Go ahead and eat it, but use the kits. So in our own scheme of things, the traditional birth attendants they're very strong in terms of deciding whether a woman should use the kit or not. They are the ones we focus on. And in focusing on them, it's about strong interpersonal relationship with them. We don't go to them to say, discard all those things you are having and then use our kits. Nobody would listen to you if you do that. So we go to them telling them we are partners, we want to help you earn more money, we want to help you get better at what you do so that you have more clients. They want to hear that. So we tell them that. And then we talk to them and have consistent training for them. Give them tracking booklets to show us how many women died in their facility, how many babies died in their facility, why did they die, did you refer any woman, why did you refer? Because all those indices help us to determine where we should focus on when we are training the birth attendants. So your education actually is nonsense when you are faced between life and death. When a woman is pregnant and she remembers all the people she knows that are dead as a result of being pregnant, I mean, our education takes the backstage and the advice of the birth attendants becomes prominent in our mind. Educated people visit those people. People who have university degrees visit those people for childbirth. Would you say it's because they don't know what they want? Would you say it's because they don't have money? They do. They have money, they have information, but it's still the fear of death that pushes them to these people. And so we turn these people into positive influencers in the life of the pregnant women. That's our own model. That's how we work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. My question is to Ms. Adepeju. So, are you looking to expand any further into Africa, or is your product specifically designed for the current situation in Nigeria?
So if you are African, I'm sure you would agree with me that the problem that I've spoken about is not just the problem of Nigeria. It's the problem of many African countries. And then the solution is not just a solution for Nigeria. It's also a solution for every African country. We would like to expand, even very fast, but we are very careful about expanding. If you look at the African continent, it's basically divided into two. Those who have relatively stable economy, as well as those who are in conflict and post-conflict. So if we jump out to say, okay, we are in like 6 different states in Nigeria, let's move out to other countries. Do we have enough lessons from Nigeria to take into other countries? That's why right now, last year, we started expanding into conflict and post-conflict areas in Nigeria, so that we will take the lessons from those places and move into other similar African countries. It's good to expand, but we must expand with key lessons in mind. That is what expansion looks like for us. Also, do not forget that Nigeria has 200 million people, about 50 million people of childbearing ages. We have just sold 500,000 kits. We've not even sold 1 million. We still have a deficit of minimum 49 million women to meet. Have we exhausted? Can we even say that we have achieved half purchase or market rate in Nigeria? The answer is no. So why are you in a hurry to expand? We should just continue in Nigeria, get our lessons, get our indices from both the conflict and post-conflict areas, which Nigeria has, as well as the relatively stable economy, which it has in the western parts, in the places that are not inflicted with terrorist group. So the lessons that we take together, combine, and we expand. When we expand, you would see us again.
Now, I would like to give our speakers a chance to talk about their own journey. Now, all of you are successful to different extent, but when you get started, you must have been very, very small. How do you get from very small, facing a lot of challenges, people telling you it's impossible, how do you actually get from very small to success? Can some of you share with us? That would be very helpful for our young people.
Yes. So I think that I fit very well into the question that has been asked. And the reason is because my background is law. I'm a lawyer in Nigeria. That's what I studied. Spent 5 years in the university studying law, practiced law for 10 years in Nigeria before I started Mother's Delivery Kits. What does that tell you? Do not let your degree put you in a box. Don't let it limit you from solving real-life problems that you are passionate about. Don't let anybody tell you you would not be able to make progress or do something really nice with whatever idea you have in your hand because it's not your field of study. I studied law, not medicine. Even medical doctors do not have any inventions in Nigeria. They just go to work 9 to 5. I do more than that. So don't let anything stop you or limit you. And that's number one. Number two, how do you move from small to big? Look for a model that works for you. When I started Mother's Delivery Kit, I was told by many, apart from the fact that they told me that nobody will buy the kit. Those who believe that people will buy the kit believe that it is government that will buy the kits. They believe that if I approach the federal government or the state government, that they would be able to mop up all the kits that we produce and send off to rural communities. But then, it means that I would lose connection with the ultimate consumer of my goods. Do I want to do that? My answer is no. Do I also want to rely on the government? No. If you are from Africa, you understand why you should not rely on government. Because they will owe you. They will owe you big time. And when you have another election, a new set of people enter into government, they'll forget about you and the fact that they owe you and recruit new set of people to supply, and the chain goes on. It's endless. And you have a whole load of backlog of people being owed by government. So you become disillusioned and then you abandon it and I go back to law practice. That's not going to happen. And so what do? I started building a bottom to top model that focuses on the ultimate consumer of my good. I started looking into communities. I visit each community one by one. So it's more tasking. It's more drilling to do that. It's harder. It's just easy to just produce for government and government mops it up and credits your account. That's the easy way. But I do not take easy ways. And so I went back and did bottom to top model, identifying each one of our consumers, training each one of our birth attendants, discussing with each of them, giving them tracking booklets, identifying what they would like to learn, what we can do to innovate better for them. So again, the easy way out is not really, most times, the best way out. Identify a model that works for you. So that's my number 2 lesson when I started Mother's Delivery Kit. Number 3 lesson, build your capacity. So yes, I studied law, but I work in the field of healthcare. I do that not ignorant of the fact that I need some basic knowledge in what I do. If you know lawyers, at least back home in Nigeria, lawyers do not like mathematics, but we like money. And so, at the minimum, I need to be able to calculate my profits. I need to be able to see that revenue is coming in, and I need to be able to see how much is going to overhead. And so what did I do? I applied for a program that saw me studying business and entrepreneurship at the University of Texas at Austin at the bill of the United States government. That's also because as an entrepreneur, there's no money. So you have to continue to look for opportunities that would build your capacity. And after doing that, the US government decided that they could also offer me an opportunity to have background knowledge in global health. And so I went on, they posted me to the United Nations Foundation in DC, and I had some time with them, with their maternal and child health team, where they worked in Bangladesh, India, and South Africa. And so I worked with them on all these projects. And as I was going back to Nigeria, the US government gave me $25,000 to support my work in Nigeria. If I did not recognize my own weakness as somebody not having capacity and somebody that needs to build capacity, all those things would never have happened. And so I built my capacity in that regard. So if you are lacking in something, be very honest with yourself. Identify that thing and build your capacity around it. That way, nobody can talk you down, and nobody can talk down at you. And no doctor can talk down at me, actually, in Nigeria. I will school you. So those are my 3 top lessons as I was going on as an entrepreneur. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I just got schooled. So for me, to give like a practical approach, if you saw our service, actually we didn't build an app for it. So you might, some of you might know there's this platform like WhatsApp called KakaoTalk in Korea. So it's like the #1 app and everybody uses it. So we didn't have any developers we didn't have any developers in our team, and we didn't have any money to pay developers. So we used free technology and tried it out. So for the initial stage, I would recommend like use whatever you have rather than trying to build something fancy. So use any platforms, whether it's online or offline, whatever you need, try to utilize what you already have. In terms of, especially in terms of the skills that you have. So for me, I have another co-founder. He's skilled in learning things quickly. So he learned how to design, code, do marketing. And I was the one that was fluent in English and studied business. So I created all the content that we needed to do and use whatever I learned in school to make the business run. So try to utilize whatever skills you have and make sure that your skills, even if they're not like very developed, actually match what you're trying to do. Because if, let's say, me and my co-founder didn't know anything in English or like didn't speak any English at all, or let's say didn't know how to design anything, like it's gonna be hard to follow through. So try to utilize whatever skill sets you have and then build from that. And for me, I'm personally kind of like a person that like dreams big and brings ideas all the time, which my co-founder kind of hates because he's more of like a realistic person. So I'm always talking about like big stuff and the next step when he's like, okay, why don't we try to like do whatever you said yesterday and just like stick with it first. So that kind of balance is very important in the team. So first of all, you can dream big and everything, but you have to take the little steps every single day. And if you're kind of like the dreamy type and like me, that kind of might be frustrating, but you have to take this small steps and see the results yourself. So for us, it was like bringing in the initial customers or the clients. So we spent like, we only had like a little bit of money, so we spent like $10 a day on marketing on Facebook. So we did that and then saw the results. Okay, look into the data, like what happened in every step, like who purchased and who fell out. Like we talked to the customers. So you have to take the little steps, and then eventually you'll learn something from that, even if it's like very small. And then if you're sure of the lesson you learned, then you can put in whatever resources you have into that insight that you got, and then you can scale. So as a first-time entrepreneur, and I started the company like when I was in my like mid-20s, so I was very inexperienced. So we did kind of take a long time in the beginning, but then once we knew where we should put the money in or what we should tackle, then it kind of multiplied. So try to learn from the tiny steps that you make.
My experience is quite interesting, just like because once we start our business for a year, we receive quite a lot of response because there's a big market gap in the market. So we receive a lot of inquiry. And also a lot of people will email us whether we can develop partnership or even like investment opportunity. Some crazy people are like, hey, I can invest you a huge amount of money, but can you like go to the stock market within a few years? I want you to expand to Singapore or mainland China. There's a lot of this that's kind of temptation. But for me, I would like to use a three critical aspects to reveal whether we should go for next step. So I would say vision, capacity, and support. For vision, I'm really asking myself, actually, why should I do this social venture? If I got the funding, whether it actually means that I can help more people or more professions. That's the first critical factors I revealed. And second is about capacity. Frankly speaking, my business is more about safety and human communication, because you really need to know the needs of your clients. But not only the elderly, but also the unfinded needs of the family members. So I would say that whether I can recruit this kind of talent, they want to commit to elderly service and also to develop the expertise on this area. I would say that my expansions will confined by whether I can recruit sufficient talents. So that's why for this criteria, I won't take the weeks to expand so fast, but instead I really want to work with different academia and form my own team with the culture I want to control. And last but not least is about support. Support is about government, but in Hong Kong the government a little bit light for some pilot funding scheme. And secondly, it's about the commercial partner, because we are a service provider, but we actually, for innovation, will really need to work with the commercial sectors. So because these considerations, we actually introduced a private investor last year with a really experienced entrepreneur and manufacturing experience. And we share the same values, so that's why we make the decision like that. So I think before you pick a funding or even for expansion, the most critical thing is whether your service create value for your consumer. And sometimes you may lead to enhancing your services or professionalism before you actually proven that your model and your services create value. Then everything can come really easily. Money actually is the least, the funding and money is the least important thing from my experience.
Okay. I'm afraid I have not managed the time really well, and we will not be able to entertain any more questions. And I will not try to draw a conclusion that today it has been very fruitful. I hope you all got something that you need to think about. Let's pass the time to the team again. And thank the speakers for really fruitful
Thank you, Ms. Jaiyeoba, Ms. Jin, Ms. Joy, and Mr. Chan. Now may I invite, please, Mr. Chan to present the souvenir to Mr. Lawrence Loy for his sharing and his presence. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Mr. Loy, for sharing his journey and his enterprise. And so time passes very quickly, and now we have come to the end of the keynote lectures as well as the forum. Thank you for joining us today.